Hello everyone, Ryan here. Now, this is the second part to the two-part series of the podcast where I go into open rent, how you guys can use open rent completely free, guys, to find your next service accommodation property. Now, this was the second part that was taken from a training program that I held with business people and entrepreneurs and landlords as well. I hope you get some value from this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. The biggest question every entrepreneur, landlord, and guru wants to know is this. How are landlords and entrepreneurs like us increasing our rent up to £42,155 a year above the market rent from a single property? Now that replaces the average salary, whether we're the owner of the property or we're just the tenant. You're listening to Ryan OTTO, and this podcast will give you all the answers. Welcome to the perfect property deal. So if the landlord at the viewing or after the viewing, when you send them the offer, if they decline the company let, now you have their phone number, you have their name, you have their address. So you can follow up with the landlord if you still notice that particular property is not let. Now, you will be surprised to find that in time, landlords that said no to you will come back to you at a later date and some will say yes. Now, this is all based on their experience with finding a tenant or not finding a tenant, and they may need to minimize their voids and call you back when you least expect it. So you'll have the additional benefit of having seen the property so you know exactly what it's worth to you. Now, what I mean by this is that if it's on the market for £1,000 per month and it has something that you can earn more money from, like its own parking space or a balcony, let's say it's got a roof garden, maybe access to a gym on the ground floor, or maybe it's got a small bedroom not advertised as a bedroom but used as an office that you could use as a single or even a double room or an occasional bedroom. Then you could even pay £1,100 a month, or even £1,200 or £1,250 a month. Imagine when the landlord sees your proposal that's, say, a couple of £100 more than his asking price per month, which equates to around £7,200 more rent over the rental term. What would you say if all you need is a flexibility to change the occupants to be included in the agreement? Now, the landlord will be faced with a very difficult decision to say no, right? Or at least the odds are now back in your favor for the landlord to now say yes. There was this one deal. It was a 3-story townhouse, I remember. It had just been decorated, just been recarpeted. It had a garden. It was in the city, right in the middle of the city with a garden, which is very, very unique. And I just knew that that house would rent for around £5,000 a month from April to September and around £2,700 a month out of season. Now, the landlord's name was Paul, I remember, and he lived in South Africa. Now, he was only back in the UK for around 10 days to deal with the house, then he was flying back to South Africa. The asking price for this property, or the rent, was £1,250 a month. Now, I offered the full rent. He declined, and he took referencing fees and a deposit from some professional sharers, which he chose to go with instead. Now, he called me the next day to say he prefers to go with the sharers over a company let. Now, I wasn't going to let this deal get away from me. Even though it was dead in the water and the let was in progress, he had taken money, started the credit checking and referencing on the professional sharers, I still was not prepared to let this deal go. Now, 2 days later, my daughter Isabella, she wanted to go shopping for shoes. So I said, of course, darling, let's just take a little detour across the city. So I walked past the landlord's house. I knew where he would be because there was work still being finished whilst he was here for these 10 days. The carpets were about to go down and he had to make sure the house was finished before he left the country. So he was there and tradesmen were there. He was actually staying in a property on the top floor, the 3rd floor. Now, I deliberately took my daughter with me. We knocked the open door. It was great that the door was open. And I just said, "Hi, Paul. We was just passing. I saw that you were here, so I just wanted to say hi, really. See how the work's getting on, see how things are before you go back home to South Africa. We started talking. I encouraged Paul to talk about the deal that he told me, oh, it's now let. You know, the tenants have paid for the credit checks. You know, they've paid for the referencing. It's all started. You know, the guys have given some notice. So, you know, it's not really possible to do a deal anymore. We just spoke about his reasons for not deciding to go with my company, and I just overcame them to give him peace of mind. One of his objections was not having an office in that city. So I just invited him to a barbecue at one of my houses on the weekend that I use, where my children would be to come and stay on the weekend in the city. And I just said, look, don't worry, Paul, just come round to the barbecue. You know, Isabella, the children will all be there. We'll have a couple of drinks and some nice food, and we can sign the paperwork there at my house for peace of mind. What do you think? I knew there was a way back. So I said, Paul, I want this property in my portfolio. I want it in my portfolio for the next 5 years. It's a great fit. And I'm prepared to show you how much I want this property. So I'm going to make you a better offer. Now, we can deal with all the paperwork at my house at the barbecue on Monday. And I can only leave this offer on the table for you to consider until Monday, I'm afraid. So he now had the weekend from Friday to Monday to decide. Now, the property was already let to professional sharers for £1,250 a month. I just said, Paul, I'm prepared to pay £1,500 a month for 5 years. That's 12 months more rent than your current offer over the 5 years. I'm just giving you £15,000 more across those 5 years if you decide to work with me and my company. What do you think? Now, I knew my numbers. I knew I would still earn around £2,200 to £3,000 per month every single month from this renovated house. 20% more I offered the guy. In my case study, I've actually referred to this property somewhere else in this training. That particular property is earning over £3,000 a month. It's the white cottage with the fisheye lens we took outside with the black metal gate that you can see. Now, what do you think happened on Monday? Paul went from a no to a yes. It was that simple. All because I knew my numbers and I was not afraid to offer the maximum I knew I possibly could to seduce Paul and at the same time still make a significant profit for the company. Any of you here think you can do this? Any of you here think you can just pay or offer more than the market rent to seduce a landlord? So don't just take a no as a no. Find out what their objections are. Work with them, overcome them. If that doesn't work alone, offer to pay the maximum you know you can so you still make a significant profit. Remember, on a £1,000 property, you can usually rent it for £3,000 on booking.com. You've got a £2,000 a month margin to play with. So paying 20% above the market rent, it's nothing. It's nothing when that additional £250 a month has single-handedly been responsible for securing that deal, which means we'll still earn £24,000 to £32,000 profit a year, which is £120,000 to £162,000 over the next 5 years. Would anybody here right now not pay 20% more above the market rate for an asset in return for all of that profit? Who wouldn't? That's just business. Now, what's really interesting is the fact that this was the second time my daughter had come with me to a meeting in the last 12 months. And both times she was with me. Guess what happened? We, turned the landlord 180 degrees around from a no to short letting to a yes, take my property. So guess what I did? I took her shopping. It cost me about £90 for her brand new trainers, and she's now my lucky charm. And always she wants to come with me to more meetings because she knows when they turn into deals, she gets to go shopping with daddy again. Now, my two boys were furious that she got a brand new pair of trainers. So I had all of those arguments with my boys but that's another story. My friend, if you're not already using arbitrage, what I mean by that is taking a rental property you don't have to be the owner of out of the AST rental market and putting it on Booking.com. You stand to lose out on the largest transfer of wealth that's happening right now in 2019. Because every £1,000 of AST rent is now worth up to £3,000 of rent on Booking.com. If you're not focusing all of your attention on Booking.com right now, you stand to lose. Now you have a massive advantage over the other 2.5 million landlords that are also looking for these secrets. Don't waste that advantage by doing nothing after listening to this talk today. You can join our communities on social media called Ask Ryan OTTO to discuss these episodes and have your questions answered on the next show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. I would love to hear from you and know what you liked about this talk.